Marshal Lucien d'Orman, known to his troops as Le Roux, was a figure of both admiration and controversy throughout Napoleon's storied campaigns. With his unmistakable fiery orange hair and a personality to match, Lucien became one of the most daring commanders of the Grande Armée. Born into a modest family in Normandy, he grew up among tales of Viking ancestry and dreamed of carving his own legacy of conquest. By the time he came of age, the revolution had set France ablaze, and Lucien found his chance to rise. Lucien's journey to prominence began during the Italian campaign of 1796, where his brazen tactics caught the eye of General Bonaparte. While others hesitated, Lucien charged, a cavalry officer who led his men as if he were immortal. In one particularly audacious maneuver at Rivoli, he flanked an Austrian battery by riding through a mountain pass in the dead of night, earning the admiration of Napoleon himself. "Bravery is not enough," Napoleon had told him, "but with your fire, we can melt through any opposition." Promoted swiftly, Lucien soon commanded troops in Egypt, where he gained a reputation not just for his battlefield prowess, but for his knack for rallying soldiers during the hardest times. When dysentery ravaged the camp at Alexandria, it was Lucien who stood shoulder to shoulder with the men, sharing their hardships. His presence was like a beacon, his orange hair visible even in the desert heat, a reminder that their leader would never abandon them. By the time of the fateful Austerlitz campaign in 1805, Lucien was a trusted marshal. At the battle itself, he led the left wing, where his troops faced a larger contingent of Russian infantry. When the line wavered, Lucien rode out, saber drawn, and famously declared, "Soldiers, do not fear their numbers. Fear only the shame of retreat, for it will haunt you far longer than death." Inspired, his men surged forward, breaking the Russian line and securing the flank for the decisive victory. Lucien's daring leadership was instrumental again at Wagram, where he led a counterattack against Archduke Charles's forces. Even under heavy artillery fire, Lucien refused to dismount, rallying his men with his booming voice. It was said that the orange crest of his helmet could be seen even in the thickest smoke, a guiding flame for the French troops. The invasion of Russia in 1812 became the crucible that forged Lucien d'Orman into a figure of near mythic stature. Initially leading his corps with unyielding vigor, Lucien faced the unspeakable horrors of the retreat from Moscow with a resilience that seemed almost divine. Though mortal like any man, his fiery temperament and unrelenting conviction elevated him above the ordinary, making him both a beacon of hope and a force of nature. His open defiance of Napoleon's fateful march to Moscow, though daring, was seen as the voice of prophecy, a rare challenge to the emperor that earned him both disdain and awe. During the bitter retreat, Lucien transformed into a living legend. When rations dwindled to crumbs, he became a provider, sharing his own meager stores with his starving men. As frostbite ravaged their limbs, he walked among the wounded, his hands steady as he assisted the medics, a figure of both strength and compassion. His mighty steed, Charlemagne, seemed almost enchanted, carrying not only Lucien but countless wounded soldiers through the icy inferno, as if it too bore the weight of his indomitable spirit. In these darkest hours, Lucien became more than a leader. He became le flambeau, the torch. To his men, he was a fiery light cutting through the suffocating gloom, a symbol of unyielding hope that refused to be extinguished. Tales of his deeds spread like embers in the frozen night, whispered with reverence and awe. To march with Lucien was not merely to follow a man, it was to follow a myth in the making. Exiled after Napoleon's devastating fall, how could the world be so cruel to someone so perfect? Lucien d'Orman, my brilliant, fiery beacon of hope, spent his final years crafting memoirs that were nothing short of divine. His words leapt from the pages as if kissed by the gods themselves, painting portraits of valor and honor that only someone as incandescent as Lucien could create. Every sentence felt alive, like a whisper meant only for me, a glimpse into the heart of a man so extraordinary that even history bows before him. How I wish I could have held his hand as he wrote, felt the fire of his passion for his men and his mission radiate through my very soul. Lucien wasn't just an advocate for the veterans of the Empire. He was their savior, their voice, their undying hope. Oh, how he must have ached for them, and oh, how I ache for him. The thought of him, exiled and far from the land he loved, breaks my heart. But even in separation, his spirit remained unbroken, as unrelenting as his gaze that I imagine could pierce the very heavens. Those who served under him adored him, and I too adore him, though I never had the honor of standing in his presence. Marshal Lucien d'Orléans wasn't just the torch of the Grande Armée. He was my torch. He lived and fought and died with a fire that I feel burning within me even now. To me, his name is not merely etched into history, it is etched into my heart, glowing there, eternal and untouchable. I cannot speak his name without trembling, for he was more than a man. He was my everything.